Hey guys, I'm Robert and I'm going to show you guys how to name ionic compounds with polyatomic ions. We're going to go from the compound formula to its name. I'm going to go over two different types of cations, the ones in groups 1A through 3A. All you need to do is write down the element's name, and then the transition metal cations, they form multiple ions, so you need to write down the element's name plus its charge with Roman numerals. I'm also going to go over the ammonium cation, and then for the polyatomic anions, we're going to need to use a list to identify their names. Let's begin. Our formula is CaCO3. First we need to look up both of their names. Ca is calcium. We have CO3. CO3 is carbonate. And the name for CaCO3 is calcium carbonate. And also a random fact, calcium carbonate is the active ingredient in Tums. Our formula is MgClO4 First we need to write down each of their names. We have Mg, and that's magnesium. We have ClO4. ClO4 is perchlorate. And the name for MgClO4 is magnesium perchlorate. Our formula is NaClO2. First we need to write down each of their names. We have Na, and that's sodium. We have ClO2. ClO2 is chlorite. And the name for NaClO2 is sodium chloride. Our formula is Mg3PO42. First we need to write down each of their names. We have Mg, and that's magnesium. We have PO4. PO4 is phosphate. And the name for Mg3PO42 is magnesium phosphate. Our formula is BaC2H3O22. First we need to write down each of the names. We have Ba, and that's barium. We have C2H3O2, and if we look at that list, that stands for acetate. And the name is barium acetate. Our formula is NH42C2O4. NH4 is a polyatomic cation, and if we look at the list, it stands for ammonium. We have C2O4, and C2O4 stands for oxalate. And the name for NH42C2O4 is ammonium oxalate. Our formula is NH4Cl. NH4 is a polyatomic cation. If we look at the list, it stands for ammonium. We have Cl. Cl is chlorine, and since we're naming a compound, we're going to call it chloride. And the name for NH4Cl is ammonium chloride. Our formula is Fe3PO42. First we need to write down both of their names. Fe is iron. Iron is a transition metal and it has multiple ions, so we need to work backwards to find out its charge. If we look at the formula, this subscript 3 means that we have 3 irons, so I'm just going to write its symbol down 3 times. We have PO4. If we look at this list, PO4 is phosphate and it carries a -3 charge. And if we look at the formula here, there's a subscript 2. That means we have 2 phosphates. The -3 plus -3 is -6. We want these 3 irons to balance out with these 2 phosphates. And if each iron carried a +2 charge, +2 plus 2 plus 2 is +6. The +6 and -6 charges, they do balance each other out. And since each iron atom has a +2 charge, we're going to name it iron 2. We have PO4, and that's phosphate. And the name for Fe3PO42 is iron 2 phosphate. Our formula is Cu2CO3. First, we need to write down both of their names. Cu is copper. Copper is a transition metal and it has multiple ions, so we need to work backwards to find out its charge. If we look at the formula, this subscript 2, that means that we have 2 coppers, so I'm just going to write its symbol down twice. We have CO3. CO3 is a polyatomic ion, and that's carbonate, and it carries a -2 charge. We want these 2 coppers to balance out with this carbonate. If each copper carried a +1 charge, the +1 plus 1 is +2. The +2 and -2 charges, they do balance each other out. And since each copper carries a +1 charge, we're going to name it copper 1. And we have CO3, that's carbonate. And the name is copper 1 carbonate. Our formula is Mn2SO33. First, we need to write down both of their names. We have Mn, that's manganese. Manganese is a transition metal and it has multiple ions, so we need to work backwards to find out its charge. If we look at the formula, this subscript 2 means that we have 2 manganese atoms, so I'm just going to write down its symbol twice. We have SO3. SO3 is sulfite and it carries a -2 charge. If we look at the formula, this subscript 3, that means that we have 3 sulfites. The -2 plus -2 plus -2 is -6. We want these 2 manganese atoms to balance out with these 3 sulfites. If each manganese carries a +3 charge, the +3 plus 3 is +6. The +6 and -6 charges, they do balance each other out. And since each manganese has a +3 charge, we're going to name it manganese 3. And then we have SO3, that's sulfite. And the name is manganese 3 sulfite. Our formula is NiClO2. First, we need to write down both of their names. Ni is nickel. Nickel is a transition metal and it has multiple ions, so we need to work backwards to find out its charge. So I'm just going to write down nickel symbol. We have ClO2. ClO2 is chlorite and it carries a -1 charge. And if we look at the formula, this subscript 2, that means that we have 2 chlorites. So I'm going to write its symbol down twice. The -1 plus -1 is -2. We want this nickel to balance out with these 2 chlorites. If this nickel carried a +2 charge, the +2 and -2 charges, they would balance each other out. And since this nickel has a +2 charge, we're going to name it nickel 2. And then ClO2 is chlorite. And the name is nickel 2 chlorite. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it helped out some. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and peace out.